Welcome to Defying the Odds podcast, where grit, resilience, and drive take center stage. I'm Leonovsky, a political refugee from the Soviet Union turned professor of entrepreneurship, executive communication coach, and a nonprofit leader.
And I'm Victor Seydel, a formerly incarcerated individual turned software engineer, community leader, and social entrepreneur.
2018, Victor was one of my students while incarcerated. Now, we're both free, breaking barriers as business partners, community leaders, and co-hosts of this life-changing podcast.
Each episode brings you not just stories, but real strategies to help you tackle challenges in life, business, and beyond.
So tune in, be inspired, and defy your own odds.
This is Defying the Odds podcast, where no challenge is too great to conquer.
Let's go. All right. Hey, Victor.
What's going on?
I am really looking forward to introducing our audience to Dan Seydel. What were your thoughts coming in?
He had a really interesting story. He was a true testament of a servant leader. Just how he was able to kind of offer, his kidney and just all that. Like that's a whole conversation in itself, but it's remarkable. It speaks to kind of his character and. It was just awesome to see just like the trends that we notice, from season one carry on to season two, of, the power of, mentorship, of, bouncing back, not just staying stagnant and letting that define you. You have to continue showing up and defying the odds. And he's done that, throughout his career and life. And just, incredible testimony.
Yeah. I'm really excited to share this with our audience, especially the idea of planting the seed and some of the lessons, just the takeaways from a life well lived and life worth living. For all of you who are about to listen to this episode, you're in for a treat. Dan is a entrepreneur. He is a philanthropist. He is building this incredible program to change the way we build houses using natural products and unlocking human potential in prisons, in the very prison that Victor served and I volunteered in. So it's a kind of a full circle conversation. Really look forward to hearing what you all think about this particular episode. And I encourage you to reach out, let us know what you think, and let's get into it. Right, Victor?
Yeah, let's go. And if there's anybody that you think could benefit from hearing this, make sure to share it with them.
Yeah, share, like, subscribe. Let us know what you think and keep defying the odds. Let's go.
Let's go.
All right. Welcome back to Defying the Odds podcast, everyone. Get ready for the inspiring conversation. Dan, welcome to the show. Yeah, so let's ask you the most important question of the podcast is that how do you define defying the odds? What does that mean to you when you hear that?
When you first presented your program to me in the title, I was really intrigued because to me it really has to do with getting up. And when I say getting up, I mean most of us trip and fall. But what we do after that fall really defines who we are. I started my life here in Washington State. My father was taken when I was 2. So I didn't have the direction or clarity of what life should be for a man. And in my place, I'm mixed race. My father was white and my mom is African American. And so in the 70s, being a mixed race wasn't necessarily an attractive American characteristic. And so navigating through those times and learning how to be a man by, watching others. Unfortunately, TV was a big part of, who I thought was what was a redeeming characteristic of a father, of a man. of an entrepreneur. And so I learned quite a bit from that. Over my career, I've been in business over 3 decades. We've gone through some recessions. We've gone through, a major challenge with health crisis. We've had civil rights issues. And, in my personal business, I've had quite a few ups and downs. And actually, as an entrepreneur, I call myself kind of a business decathlete, which goes right well with with my athletic career. But I've really had about 7 to 8 different businesses over my business career and professional life. And I've been able to navigate through some of the more difficult times and understand where the opportunities lay and being able to pull those fish out of the water when others are challenged. Being creative and really being determined is key. I've literally fallen down. I built my house in Mason County years ago, and as I was trying to sell it, I literally fell off the deck. And it wasn't my first accident or fall. And I nearly killed myself out there, but I got back up. And when you talk about defying the odds, it's really about getting back up. And when folks, look at my tombstone, hopefully they'll be able to say, well, he did some real positive things. And, well, I hope, maybe I can do something like that. Maybe I can inspire someone else to be more than what they think they are. And so that's what my whole life has always been. I've always been a dreamer. Those folks that want to sit in, I guess, a conservative life with realistic dreams without reaching, that's not my life. If I see it, I can be it.
Right.
And so that's how I've lived my life, from business to, to athletics and to my philanthropy. It's really of being determined and not letting others, that negativity, don't let that steer you from your path. If anything, let it fuel the fire. And that's what I've done.
Okay, so you say your definition is just like essentially how like somebody's able to kind of like bounce back or get up and just not down on the ground. Yeah, that's a totally valid definition, and that resonates with me really well. It's just like, yeah, you don't let that define who you are. It's like how you react to the situation, how you're able to persevere, how you're able to, just kind of have that resilience to kind of, make it to where you are today. So do love the definition. And yeah, I think like some of the challenges you kind of touched on where it was, kind of being fatherless at a very young age and trying to like figure out how to navigate life and not having, like the right role models. And Leo could attest to my story and like kind of what that looked like for me growing up. But it's real, it's the real thing. And I appreciate you just kind of sharing that, and it does kind of make you the person who you are today. We all have a story, and appreciate you sharing yours with us in the audience. So the next question I have for you, Dan, is just, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but just, how are you in your life or business defying the odds currently?
Sure. Well, I can tell you that part of what I do in most of my businesses are really over my life. It's really been trying to help others. They're for profit, mostly businesses. The mission typically is to help others. And in my business development role and in the Entrepreneurial Institute of Washington, my role is really helping those small, disenfranchised entrepreneurs that aren't getting the resources that some of their larger peers are getting. Really providing them coaching, providing them access to best practices that their larger peers are doing. To me, that's my mission and what I do. I mean, it's a big part of what I do. And you hear what's going on in DC.
Yeah, sure.
I consider myself politically an independent. And the reason why is because I believe both parties have failed my people. And so I really have to get along with everyone, and I have to help inspire those on both sides of the aisle to be innovative, to be creative, and to be inclusive. And unfortunately, some of the policies and laws and efforts that I've made over the last 3 decades are being undermined by some of the policies that are being, I guess, passed on from DC to the states. And so I'm pretty fast and I can jump pretty high. And so for me, I'll be all right.
Right.
But I have to be able to teach others how to navigate through these times. And that's a big challenge for me. And I think the next chapter of my life is really going to be conquering economics and helping.
Let's get back to economic sovereignty in just a moment, but I would love to hear, how have you defied, what would those be?
Sure. Well, there's a few. I'll try to abbreviate some of them. I asked my soon-to-be wife, how should I highlight, some of those experiences? Which ones would be the most valuable? She mentioned to me, you've been able to survive and redefine yourself through some of the most difficult times in business while maintaining your commitment to help others. And to me, that is part of who I am. And so I've mentioned learning from my losses. So in Washington State, there was some interest from many to provide educational choices for students, especially students of color who have been failing at tremendous rates across the country when it comes to STEM. And so I got involved with founding Washington's first charter school. And in this state, charter schools were kind of the antichrist. And so there was a huge tidal wave of opposition, but we were able to create a school. And in this case, our school was really serving the most disenfranchised. We were working with homeless kids, kids that were exposed to abuse, some of the worst kinds you can think of. And in this case, we were able to raise around $3.5 million of funding to start the school. But the adults,
Wow.
um, the adults behave childish.
What was the name of the school?
First place scholars.
And you said that I love how you said it. You said the adults in the business behave childishly.
Yeah, unfortunately, when you combine egos and money, things can be corrupted. And this was a volunteer post for me, and I almost lost my business and my house as I was volunteering.
What happened? Can you?
Well, my commitment to the school was pretty strong. And at this time I was living in Shelton, Washington, and I was driving to Seattle, to the central area of Seattle, a few blocks from Garfield High School, to serve as the president, superintendent of our first, school, creating budgets, transportation, curriculum. It was a complete learning curve for an serial entrepreneur who, really didn't have a much of experience in education, other than my, personal experience. It was really a blessing, though, because I found myself, though I committed probably a little more time than I should have to the nonprofit and more in my business. I really found my home there. Those kids were my kids. It was the only place where I really knew that this is where I was supposed to be. It wasn't where I was supposed to be for my life. It was a place to be able to teach me some lessons learned and to be able to pass this on to my own son, who's now in his fourth year, or next year he'll be his fourth year of pre-med, and he has a 4.0. And I'm very proud to be a father of a very smart but good child who wants to give back. So to me, helping inspire others to give back, that's my gift, is giving, passing those tools and those torches on. I was an anchor leg on the relay, so I like to pass that baton and get that baton. But yeah, that was a tremendous experience. I told you some of the adults were behaving badly. I think part of the lessons learned is knowing what people's motivations are, understanding folks' loyalties. And so I made some adjustments in my life, and I made sure that when I ran the nonprofit, the Entrepreneurial Institute of Washington, that our board was going to have the right motivations, and they were going to be people of strong character and people that have demonstrated their heart and their willingness to give back. And I've had 3 different, I guess, cohorts of board members, and each and every one of them, I could talk a whole episode about their hearts.
Okay, so you started this charter school as uncharted territory, if you may. And you're just trying to kind of figure it all out. Like, yeah, you did have to have just like a willingness to try new and learn new things, and be able to kind of like trust the people that were around you. But it also seemed like there were tons of learning opportunities there. Well, yeah, we appreciate you sharing that experience, and maybe.
Totally.
Yeah, maybe we could dive into another way you defied your odds. I know the last time we were chatting, you talked about just your kidneys and kind of like that experience. Did you defy the odds anyway in that experience?
Well, that's you're gonna get me teared up on this one, so I'll do my best. You know, you talk about life and the people that you meet over your life, and you know, part of my work and with Platinum Group, my business development company, is I work with minority entrepreneurs and minority contractors. One of my minority contractors, a black-owned contractor, very successful mechanical contractor, has 10 kids. And
What was his name? Tell us. Part of the story is all about giving us the real thing. So talk to us about that and when and where.
hopefully I don't get in trouble. So Shelton Burr is the president and founder of Adept Mechanical out of Kent, Washington. And he had donated his kidney to one of his sons, Benjamin. And we were talking one night, and he was at my place installing a very complex mechanical system in Shelton at my place there. And we were talking, and he was sharing with me that Ben was doing good, but his son Jameson wasn't doing real well. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
His celebration of life was on Friday. But 2009, I donated my kidney to him. He lived a challenging life. I gave him some more time with his family.
You helped someone defy the odds. One of the things I remember so clearly, Dan, is when I first met you, you were speaking at a Rotary event, and you nonchalantly mentioned, among other things, that you donated a kidney to a stranger, non-relative, and that just blew me away. That just completely and utterly blew me away. And now that I know the fuller story, that his dad couldn't give another kidney. I would give my kidney to my son. I'm sure Victor would give a kidney to his son. But what if more than one person in your family needs it? To do that for someone who works for you and to give a piece of yourself in this way, to defy the odds, that's a completely different level of sacrifice. And I want to dive
That's
deep
huge.
into it, right? Many of us on the podcast, both listening and running it, have defied our own odds. Plenty. But this story is so unique that I want to really focus on it. Can you go back and say, what was your motivation? How did you make that decision? And what was behind it? Again, zoom out a little bit, maybe self-reflect a little bit more so that we as your audience can really learn something about a sacrifice in a different way.
You make me sound all heroic, and I'm far from.
So talk about that. That's the point.
You know, Victor, I'm going to speak to you on this one. In life, you know, we make decisions, and sometimes a decision that we make in one moment can affect the rest of our life, right?
For sure.
And so in my life, though I haven't spent any time and locked up, my father did, or would have if he had lived, because that was the life that he was heading. And so I've made some mistakes, and, you know, I've tried to ask my Lord and Savior for forgiveness, but I know that, you know, we got a short time here. And so for me, I know that I can never do enough good. You can never do enough good. This world is a difficult place for many, and you can never do too much good. And if you met Shelton And I told you he had 10 kids. I didn't tell you that he adopted a bunch of them. So if you met him, you would have donated your kidney too, because he's just that kind of human.
Powerful.
And yeah, he doesn't work for me. I work for him. You know, I'm a contractor lover. I try to help those contractors and try to promote them and connect them with other contractors. No, these are people that give me inspiration to wake up every day. They're people that work hard and they're loyal to their families. Good people.
We should get Shelton. Is that right, Dan?
Yeah.
We should get Shelton.
Yeah, I think you would need to do a series if you brought him on.
We'll run a parallel series. I think that's one of the things we're learning from the podcast is the quality of stories that our guests have require a series, 9 times out of 10, because there's so much. You can't cover that in 40 minutes, in an hour.
No.
But
Yeah.
But going back to that, like that story of giving the kidney and helping Benjamin defy the odds. Jameson defy the odds. Where did you personally, in your background, where did you learn lessons like this? That you can never do too much good. Where did you learn that? From whom?
I've had some pretty remarkable humans in my life. My grandmother was one who persevered because not only did she lose my dad, actually she lost my dad on an anniversary, a wedding anniversary of my dad's stepdad. So she's in Hawaii and she learns that her son, who's 24 years old, has been murdered. And so she lost her husband, my dad's father, in Korea, who was a war hero, Silver Star, Purple Heart, Carl Seydel. And then she loses her son, Daniel Seydel. And she was the Mother Teresa of our family. She was always so positive, no matter how much pain she went through. Had quite a bit of pain, but kept moving forward. Yeah, I would say those two women
Had a big influence on your life. Okay.
You said that you lost your father when you were 2, and it sounds like he got murdered. And you mentioned your 2 biggest role models being your grandmother and your mother, your paternal grandmother and your mother. What male role models taught you the lessons or taught you the opposite lessons, whatever the story is of where you are today?
When I was young, my mom wanted to have stronger men in my life. She really didn't date a lot. But there was a man by the name of Jim Sundum, who was a YMCA counselor. Well, Leo, you're killing me. You didn't tell me that you're going to get me crying. This is
Victor, remind, we need to put that as
we on Oprah?
Crying. But this is not about, listen, the thing is, it's not about the tears. It's about the lessons. You lived this, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was, Jim Sumden I learned a lot from him in a short time because he wasn't in my life that long. Him and his beautiful wife, Patty, they have a wonderful family and they're doing well in Vancouver, Washington now. Yeah. One of the best lessons I learned from him was we were playing basketball and it was a tie game. And I don't know, I must have been 10 years old. And he goes, well, we could leave it at a tie. And you go, yeah, I was always competitive. And so I don't leave anything at, he beat me that day and he taught me a lesson. And I never still haven't been taught how to lose. I don't know how to lose. So if I lose, it's temporary, but he taught me a really important lesson and I don't know.
Again.
Yeah. Oh, it'd be on. I'd jump off his shoulders if I had to. I'm a state champion high jumper, so I don't mess around. But no, I don't. I think that he was a wonderful role model. He just and a good father, and I aspire to be like him. Uh, my mentor, Leonard Simpson, who's still with me. We do a lot together, and in fact, he has a interest in working with Department of Corrections in Monroe and others, and so we're looking at collaborating there, doing some things. But you know, those folks, those men, I was always attracted to older men to see if I could learn from them and grow. And most of my relationships have been with older, you know, folks, you know, that have something that they know that I can learn from. And so I've always been kind of a sponge trying to learn from the older folks and, you know, try to save myself some time.
That's awesome. It's interesting. I'm just going to mention this idea. One of the recurring themes, and we're here doing recurring themes of Defying the Odds, is the importance of mentors. It comes back again and again and again. And that is something that those who are listening can take away from this conversation.
Mhm.
And then what I hear from this conversation, and we'll shift it back into the next step into the future here. But what I hear from this is you can never do enough good, so start now. And that doing good will make you be good too. Like it's a self-fulfilling, like it is a circle. It is a cycle of doing good and being good and doing well. And, you know, I'm curious what Victor thinks about this and how this relates to where he's coming.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was first getting out, it always seemed like good things were happening, and I come from a, troubled past. This, second time after, release, I just noticed like a big difference, and obviously the community support, I think that was really important. Mentorship was, important. I think I had 3 or 4 mentors when I first got out because I just seen the value and I wanted to kind of soak up as much as I can, especially since I was so fresh. But yeah, one of the things that was shared with me is like, if you do good things will happen. And it just kind of been that way, like ever since I've like try to give back, good things continue to happen. And it's just, I don't know, for me it's been a secret sauce is just keep doing good and good things are going to happen. Shows true time and time again, and I just appreciate it, that you raised this. But I did take the Defy Ventures like class on the inside as well, Hustle Harder, and it is really about just continuing to give back. I think you highlighted that, in your journey a lot as well. So just like those things are going to pay forward. And it does mean a lot. You never understand like the impact that it's going to have on an individual till years later. Leo probably didn't, think that we're going to be doing this podcast while he was going through that prison program, but here we are today. It's beautiful what happens when you're able to kind of pour your heart into what you do and see the fruit of your labor.
Yeah, seeing Victor succeeding, that's one of the lessons that I take from a lot of the Defying the Odds pieces and this concept, this lesson of doing, do good, right? Do good things will happen. Like paying it forward is really the best ROI and investing in humans rather than things.
Sure.
And like the value that I get from, and I see that in you invest in people, Dan. I see this all the time, and I think that the idea is like
With his kidney.
yeah, I mean that is surreal. And again, I before we move on, I just wanted to kind of I want to reflect back, and I did hear, and those this Friday, just this Friday, you had to celebrate the the life of a man that you gave, celebration of life of the man that you gave your kidney to, and you bought him 16 years of life. You bought a kid 16 years of life. That is remarkable. Yeah. Victor, you got something to ask Dan about his Defying the Odds? Anything you want to hear and know?
I probably just want like for our audience to hear just like what are your future roadblocks that you anticipate, defying the odds? Is there anything that's coming up, in your foreseeable future?
Yeah, thank you. When you guys were talking and this relationship that the two of you have, it's inspiring for me because Leo planted a seed and you watered it. And you took that home. And then not only did you take it home, but you planted more seeds yourself. And that's what we're talking about, paying it forward, giving it back. And so the next step for me really is this economic sovereignty. And I'm going to use the seed concept. And so we have turned the concept of a hemp seed to develop an economic sovereignty model around that hemp seed. And so the concept that we have is really solving the housing crisis. And part of doing that is showing people how alternative materials combine with materials that are already accepted by universal building codes and major testing and fire testing in other organizations is that there are some organic materials out there, including that hemp seed I was mentioning, that can be incorporated or integrated into a home, eliminating some of that man-made fossil fuel, fiberglass, and other material that doesn't really align with a healthy home, doesn't really align with a healthy life. And so what we have developed is a technology where we have developed an organic modular wall panel that is actually fireproof. So you think about those folks in California that need to build fast. We have designed this panel, and we've designed this panel in a way that it is a job creation tool. Unlike the 3D printers and boxables and some of those other prefabbed housing tools, this is one that actually creates jobs and empowers humans that will be living in those homes.
Mm.
Just to clarify, because I want to hear about this ecosystem you just built.
Mm-hmm.
That you're talking about using hemp seed
Mm-hmm.
and raising hemp and using hemp as a insulation product in a SIPS panel.
Mm-hmm.
For those people who are not in green build, SIPS panel is kind of like a pre-built wall. If you think of a Lego, kind of like in this case, with metal and hemp insulation, that basically constructs like a magna blocks. I don't know. You tell me what's the right analogy here. But and then you could really build a house for a fraction of the cost in a fraction of the time. So don't kill us with the building jargon, but do explain to us what the product is, and then I would love for you to go straight into this ecosystem that you're building, because you inspired me by doing that with what you do, and the scope of it is so breathtaking. So
it's hard to get excited about walls, especially, when our leader talks about walls and dividing. But in this case, these walls are really about securing your home in a safe envelope. And so this wall panel concept and what Leo alluded to is a structural insulated panel. Typically, a structural insulated panel looks like an Oreo cookie. The darker sides of the Oreo cookie typically are wood, and in the white side, the filling, that's typically an oil-based foam. And so you have, materials that aren't necessarily fast-growing or that are harmful to the environment embedded into your home. And so not that the SIP technology it's a nice modular technology, but it wasn't providing the healthy benefits that we were desiring. And we were also looking for economic development solutions. So basically what we have designed is we're using an existing framing system. So when you drive by a home that's being built, before any siding is put on that building, you see a skeleton. You see bones of wood, typically. Or if you're in a commercial building, you may see bones that are made out of steel. we've leveraged that technology, but we do it in a factory setting. And those walls, instead of being built one stud at a time, the whole wall can be built, or part of that wall can be built, including openings for windows and so forth. The system that we're using is a system that leverages that existing technology. And if we use steel, then we're using recycled steel, or we're using fast-growing wood for that organic part of it. But there's been changes in code over the years. And over the years, they found that having a stud, this cavity in between the stud, provides insulation. But right there where that stud is on both sides, there's no insulation on either side. And so code says, hey, we need to have a continuous insulation going through that wall so there's no breaks. And so we designed a system that allows you to do just that. And it's high performing, and it's critter proof, meaning you don't have a bunch of critters trying to live in there or eat or nestle in there or contaminate or compromise your wall system. It also can take on water. It absorbs carbon. And so you really have a healthy wall system. And these buildings can be built, as Leo alluded to, at a fraction of the time. And so when you're stacking these Legos together, we'll use that term. Once those Legos are built around the shell of the building, that building is dried in, which means that now you can do all your electrical, mechanical. Typically, you look at a skeleton of a residential home or commercial building, and you're going to see that skeleton for a while. It's going to be months before it's dried in, meaning you're paying money to let your materials get wet, mold, and mildewy, and then you cover that mold and mildew up with drywall and paint. It's still in that building. That's how most buildings are built in the Northwest. This technology, when you step that wall in, you immediately dry the building in, saving the owner, developer several thousands of dollars right off the bat. And they have a finished home. Sure, well, in my model, there is an 8-person crew that's needed to establish each line of work. Our goal is to build hundreds of jobs in this sector. And the factory can be a great situation for folks that are incarcerated, are going to be released, have been released, and are looking for economic development opportunities. And so we see Monroe as a very strategic location for a factory. They have space, they have power, which is needed for, some of our manufacturing purposes. And actually, because when I talk about the seed is part of the lower skilled operation. Farm work, we're not saying it's not a non-skilled activity, but it's not necessarily some of the higher skilled activities that are going to be done when you're delivering a project on a site. And so that's the start. And so there's an opportunity for folks with different interests. And so the agricultural piece, the warehouse piece, and then the job site delivery piece. And so there are 3 different components of being able to provide jobs, whether you're, on the farm, you're in the factory, or and then there's that, the bridge to each one of those. And then there's also opportunities with trucking and logistics. But the factory, to me, creates an opportunity for us to build thousands, not hundreds, thousands of homes and create thousands of jobs. And that's what my goal is. And so
high impact, and it's such a great opportunity for the folks inside too. I really appreciate you even, you just, how you approach life is awesome. We need more people like you for sure. Dan, we greatly appreciate this conversation today. Yeah, I learned a ton from you. Been awesome to just learn your journey, how you defied the odds and continue to defy the odds. But just wanted to ask before we close out, is there any last words that you want to kind of leave the audience with?
Sure. Well, I think the most important thing to remember is that the finish line is when the fat lady sings or when you're 6 feet under. So it's never too late. It's never too late to get back. It's never too late to learn a new thing that helps you help someone else. God bless you both, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to share my story with you.
That's awesome. Dan, thank you so much. And you and I have a long and prosperous and powerful future together, defying the odds, building this out. I just wanted to thank you for the work that you do. I love the analogy of the seed and how you place the seed and then other people water it and then you get somewhere where the end result is something much bigger than any of us alone can do. And this idea that, you can never do too much good. So keep doing it. And then the finish line is at the end. So it's never too late to start either. So I love this concept. And I think that, again, it's one of those things that I would love our listeners to use in their own life to defy the odds. We will add Dan's contact information about Entrepreneurial Institute of Washington, EIW, and the Platinum Group in our notes, as well as your LinkedIn profile for those people who are interested in connecting with you. I think that this concept is going to be long-lived and really transformational. So those people who are listening and they want to defy the odds with you, let them join. And for all of you who are listening or who are watching, this is an opportunity for you to get off your couch, right? And defy your own odds. And if you have your own stories of defying the odds, reach out to us. We might want to hear from you. All right, let's take it out, Victor. It's never too late to defy the odds.
Defying the odds.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Defying the Odds.
We hope you found inspiration, insight, and maybe a new way of looking at the challenges in your own life.
Remember, defying the odds is a mindset, and you have what it takes to overcome anything.
If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe.
Until next time, keep pushing forward, stay resilient, and never stop defying the odds.